Well, if you didn't like this song, you are a Nazi. Just kidding. You're not. You're beautiful. Anyway, today we're talking about eunuchs. According to Cambridge Dictionary, a eunuch is a man who has had his testicles removed.
Wait, isn't that you?
Shut up. Perhaps nobody ever told you this, but the practice of turning men into eunuchs was pretty common back in the day.
I know. My great-grandfather was a eunuch.
Interesting. Anyway, you may wonder, why would anyone do such a thing? Well, the answer, or rather, the problem, is men. You see, men like women. Men like to do women. Do things with women. And men definitely don't like other men doing things with their women. So if you're an emperor, a sultan, or a khan with 800 wives, it's only reasonable to remove the junk of every dude working within a 3-mile radius of your bedroom, so they won't
do things with their women?
Exactly. Now before we delve into the gruesome details of how eunuchs were made, let's go through the etymology of the word, so you can have something to talk about next time you approach a girl and get rejected in under 5 seconds. The word eunuchs come from ancient Greek. It could be which means guarding the bed. Because if you're a eunuch, your job pretty much involves you standing by the bed while your master has sex and you don't. The other possible origin is which means being good with respect to the mind. According to one very based grammarian in the 5th century, it's because eunuchs are deprived of intercourse and intercourse messes with your mind.
I'm also deprived of intercourse.
Well, I'm not surprised. Anyway, the famous Greek doctor Hippocrates once described the Scythians as being afflicted with high rates of erectile dysfunction and thus the most eunuchoid of all nations. Now you may ask, who the hell were the Scythians? Actually, I don't know either. But next time you can tell your history teacher that they had high rates of ED.
I also have ED.
I don't think it really matters in your case. Anyway, you may assume that all eunuchs suffer from ED as they have no balls. Well, you're wrong. Based on my extensive research, actually I just asked ChatGPT, testicles aren't technically required for erection. While they produce testosterone, which makes you want to boink boink, the erection itself is just a result of blood gushing into your penis. So if you're a super horny bastard, you might still be able to get it up after losing your balls. This is evident from an epigram written by a Roman poet in the 1st century. Do you ask, Pennicus, why Euchalia only consorts with eunuchs? Chalia wants the flowers of marriage, not the fruits. Now, if you're confused about the euphemisms here, so was I. Turns out it means that Chalia only wanted the pleasures of marriage, the sex, and not its fruit, the kids. Hence she f***ed the eunuch. There, I just explained the joke to you. And believe it or not, we still have plenty to talk about on the subject of eunuchs and sex, which brings me to the country I'm from, the glorious People's Republic of
China.
While we no longer have eunuchs, we have boy bands trying hard to emulate K-pop idols, which ends up making them look like eunuchs. Anyway, China has perhaps the longest tradition of turning men into eunuchs on Earth. After all, our last eunuch died in 1996, so don't try to compete with us in this department. You lose, and not just your balls, but also your penis. That's right, in China, we take the art of eunuch making very seriously. When we take a man's manhood, we do it thoroughly. How? Well, first of all, the castration is voluntary and can only be performed by a licensed professional. So don't try this at home. You'll just lose your dignity and ding-dong for nothing.
Ding-dong?
Yes, ding-dong. You know, the ding and the dong. Anyway, you have to first sign a contract with your castrator, declaring that you're doing this of your own free will and not because you've gone mad and just want revenge on your ex. Once they're sure you're not completely insane, you'll be kept in a poorly ventilated room for 3 or 4 days, during which you're supposed to empty your bowel and bladder and not eat or drink. Then the castrator and his assistants will come to strip you naked and pin you down on a very uncomfortable bed. Chili pepper water will be then sprinkled on your crotch to disinfect, supposedly, and your groin will be slapped repeatedly until you feel numb. Before the final cut, the castrator will ask you one last time if you're really sure about wanting to become a they-them. And once you say yes, he will make the cut. I wish I could go into more details on this, but YouTube will most likely demonetize me and I really like money. So let's just say there's a lot of yanking and squeezing involved. After it's done, the castrator will put a pig gallbladder on your wound to disinfect, supposedly.
Does it actually work?
Of course it doesn't. Now if you survive the infection, and you will get one, congratulations, you've officially become a eunuch. It takes balls to do what you did. But before you go work at the Emperor's Palace, here are a few things you should know. First, since you no longer have, the tube, you have to squat down to pee. Also, wearing a diaper is advisable, as any sudden or strenuous movement might cause your bladder to leak. On the bright side, since now you have almost no testosterone, you have a significantly lower risk of getting prostate or testicular cancer. I'm sorry, that's very insensitive. You have a significantly lower risk of getting prostate cancer.
Now tell me more about eunuchs and sex.
Alright, so there are two ways that eunuchs can have sex. The first is by cheating, basically paying someone off so you can go work at the emperor's palace while still being fully equipped with your reproductive organ. For example, the first emperor of China. If you don't know who he is, please consider watching this video of mine. It's not very good, but I'm in desperate need of views. Anyway, someone sent the emperor's mom a fake eunuch, whom we shall refer to as Johnny here. So Johnny had a BAC, which stands for Big Asian C. Now I know you racist mofos out there will say it's impossible, but it is, so fuck you. Anyway, according to the official history, Johnny's BAC was so big that he could hang a cartwheel on it. And apparently he would often walk around with a cartwheel on his dong to please the emperor's mother.
Do you also have a BAC?
Yes. And the second way eunuchs have sex is rather brutal, for the recipient. A book written in the 16th century happened to document this. So the author's dad was friends with a high-ranking eunuch in Beijing, who gave the dad two of his concubines. And yes, eunuchs could marry, which was unfortunate for the women. Anyway, so the dad
shared the concubines with his son?
No! What is wrong with you? So the dad asked one of the concubines whether the eunuch, had sex with her. The concubine said yes, so the dad asked how, and she said the eunuch would scratch, pinch, and bite her all over until he got exhausted and very sweaty. The process usually lasted for hours, and she would have to rest for days afterward. Anyway, I'm pretty sure you've gotten more information about eunuchs than you ever asked for, but before I let you go, here's a bit more. There was a self-castration cult called
Skopci
in Russia in the 18th century, where the men would cut off their meatballs and sausages, and the women their boobies and little beans, all because they believed that lust was the greatest sin.
That's right.
Well, they reached the peak of their popularity in the early 20th century, but later got wiped out by Stalin.
Yay!